Who could ever forget the sudden and untimely death of Hollywood actress Natalie Wood? The starlet's body was found floating in the Pacific Ocean, hours after a leisurely night on her yacht with her husband Robert Wagner and co-star Christopher Walken. It was considered a tragic accident. Last year, Robert Wagner was officially named a person of interest. But to this day, it has never really been clear what happened that night. And it will reign as one of the darkest unsolved Hollywood mysteries of all time. Today, Nancy Grace is here to take a new look at the evidence. We're asking the question, what does Natalie Wood's autopsy report reveal about how she really died? With doe-eyed innocence that evolved into smoldering sensuality, actress Natalie Wood made the leap from child star to ingenue and leading lady to international icon with ease. Her tremendous talent and beauty made her a superstar. Her love life made her a tabloid staple. Married, divorced, and remarried to actor Robert Wagner, the telegenic couple became one of Hollywood's most tumultuous duos, ending with Natalie's untimely and tragic death in 1981. Her last night alive was spent with Wagner on their yacht, with their guest, actor Christopher Walken. After an evening of drinking and alleged quarreling, Natalie, who was unable to swim and terrified of deep water, somehow went overboard. 6 hours later, her body, floating face down, was recovered a mile away. She was 43 years old. Her last moments on the yacht fueled rampant speculation and innuendo. The Los Angeles County Coroner's autopsy would deem her death an accidental drowning, but note that her body was covered with bruises. The yacht's captain, Dennis DeVerne, also reported hearing Wagner and Wood loudly quarreling before her death. No charges were ever filed, but the case was reopened in 2011, and Wood's death was reclassified to drowning and other undetermined factors. And just last year, Robert Wagner was named a person of interest by investigators. Now, more than 3 decades later, will there finally be answers about Natalie Wood's untimely and tragic death? Joining me now is Crime Online founder and former prosecutor Nancy Grace. Thank you, as always, for being here. Now, there were 3 people there, only 3, the night that Natalie Wood drowned. The captain, Dennis DeVerne, there was Christopher Walken, and Natalie's husband, Robert Wagner. Now, their stories differ. You've interviewed Natalie's captain, Dennis DeVerne. How is his story different from what Christopher Walken has said in the past, and Robert Wagner as well?
Well, can I tell you this, Dr. Oz? I have questioned and put on the stand and cross-examined well over 1,000 people, and that's being on the low side. I think I know a liar.
I'm sure you do.
Dennis DeVerne is not lying. Now, I know he lied at the get-go, but according to him, Robert Wagner said, stick to my story. And he and Walken did. Now, Natalie Wood and Walken, Christopher Walken, were starring in a new movie, Brainstorm, okay? They were scientists that married each other. And Wagner was very jealous, and he admits that. All right, so the night before all this happens, it's so bad that Natalie asked DeVerne, the captain, to take her ashore. And they slept in a hotel, separate rooms, the night before. She was so upset with Wagner being jealous of her. So they go back. They have a nice breakfast. She cooks it, blah, blah. It's like nothing ever went wrong. That night, Wagner, which he didn't tell us at first, he said at first it was because of the motion of the boat. Then he comes out, and it's in his book. He takes a wine bottle. They were all drinking too much. You know, too much booze gets you in trouble. He gets the wine bottle, crashes it down on the table with Natalie Wood and Christopher Walken sitting there. I mean, can you imagine your husband doing that? Well, Walken got up right then, and he went to his room and shut the door. And that's what everybody says happened. So Walken stayed in his room. So I believe Walken. He doesn't have anything to add. After that, DeVerne tells me that he heard loud arguing, physical arguing, like motion. Then suddenly everything goes quiet. He gets up and goes to the aft deck. Wagner, he says, is leaned back against the wall, says, Natalie's gone. You better look for her. He runs around, looks, can't find her. This is what DeVerne tells me. And then he says, we got to turn on the spotlight. The dinghy's gone. This is DeVerne talking. And he goes, no, I don't want any bad press. Let's wait. They don't turn on the spotlight. So, long story short, the story is she got mad and went out on the dinghy.
So some of this became evident years ago. And I understand in the very beginning, none of it was really clear. And they've slowly been putting pieces together. So what happened after 20 years that prompted the police to reopen the case of Natalie's death?
Additional witnesses. 2 witnesses on 2 separate vessels, 2 boats, separated. They're not together. Claim they hear a male and a female voice that they say they believe is Wagner and Natalie. Mm-hmm. They say they hear them fighting outside on the deck, which is completely opposite of what Wagner says happened that night.
So what stuns me still is that decades after the original event, just now we're beginning to put these pieces together. How common is that? For example, for these witnesses to suddenly come up who I suspect, they must have known or been aware that they could have been helpful back in 1981.
You're not going to like this, but there are almost always witnesses that the state doesn't find. Not because they're not trying. I mean, at that time, he's a superstar. Listen to this. This is what a relative told me. That
a relative of
Natalie's.
Yeah.
That Wagner would say, I'm just a TV, where do you guys want to go? Ask Natalie. She's the movie star. I'm just the TV guy. Now, why would you say that? I mean, it was clear that resentment. And they were divorced, Oz. They were married, they got divorced. She remarried somebody else, had a baby, divorced, and then they got back together. And I always say this to ladies, there's a reason he's an ex. Remember that when you want to get back together.
All right, up next, the woman who fought to get Natalie Wood's case reopened. She is here in person. What evidence does she say she has from Natalie's autopsy that may change everything? Stay with us. We're back investigating how actress Natalie Wood met a tragic end after a fatal voyage sent her overboard in the Pacific Ocean. Now, her death was labeled an accidental drowning in 1981, but later changed to drowning and other undetermined factors decades later. Since then, Wood's death has continued to spark controversy. I'm back with Nancy Grace. We're also joined by investigative author Marti Rulli. She has fought for decades to get Natalie Wood's case reopened. Now, Marti is close friends with Dennis Stavern, the boat captain who was an eyewitness the night Natalie Wood died. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
So,
thank you.
Before I get to the details of this, what got you involved in this? What launched your lifelong desire to figure out what really happened to Natalie Wood?
Well, I was always a fan of Natalie Wood's ever since I was a kid, but my friend Dennis Stavern worked for them. And when I heard of Natalie's death, the day she was pulled from the water, it was world-breaking news. I expected a call from Dennis. We were that close. It took 18 months for him to call me in the middle of the night and confess there was foul play in Natalie's death.
So I want to put my doctor hat on for a second and go through this autopsy. The case was reopened. A new coroner was assigned to re-examine Natalie's autopsy report. So let's go up here together. I'm going to show everybody what this autopsy report revealed. And initially, remember, Natalie's case, her death was determined to be an accidental drowning. But closer look at the bruises all over her body tend to paint a very different picture. So I'll explain this, but you guys should all be thinking with me, what could have caused this? So she had bruising up on her forehead and her cheek, right? She had bruising on her right forearm. She had some bruising on her left wrist, right? The front of her right and her left legs had bruising, right? That's what this writing all says. And then she also had bruising on her left knee and her right ankle, right? Left knee and right ankle. And now, those bruises also involved the back of her legs. There are quite a few back here. In fact, my team counted all these bruises. There are at least 11 bruises to the back of Natalie's legs and at least 28 bruises to the front of her body. Now, I'm trying to figure out, how does someone get bruises on their ankles and their wrists, right? What causes that? How do you get so many bruises on the back of your legs? So, Marty, what could this be?
Well, when I received Natalie Wood's autopsy report, the minute I saw these diagrams, I knew I was looking at a battered woman. I could not believe that a coroner could have just let this go for one fall. One fall can never cause this many bruises. And objects hitting you in the water, I highly doubt it. But these bruises, I went over this with a doctor. They looked like Natalie had been held at the ankles and dragged, which could have caused the facial abrasion.
So
her face was dragged along the deck.
So if she's face down,
yes,
and the ankles are grabbed, and she's pulled along this nonstick deck,
yes,
that could explain some of these 28 bruises on the front.
Many of them, but especially the upward position facial abrasion and the small circular bruises at her ankles.
From holding the ankles?
Yes.
Or the wrists. And what about the back of the leg?
That could have been from the fight in the stateroom that Dennis was right above on the bridge and he heard things hitting the walls and banging, and who knows what kicking and punching went on in that room.
Now there's one other item here that I want to point out to y'all, which was the bladder. This is a very important detail. Natalie's bladder was full. And this is important, and it's a crucial issue for investigators to know about. Let's put it in context. The average human bladder, 300 to 400 cc's, right? A couple cups of fluid. You all have gone to the bathroom, you know how much urine is in there, right? She had 300 cc's of urine in her bladder during the autopsy, which means her bladder is basically full. Now, the theory was that Natalie was fearfully drowning, right? She fell into the water, and if you're all in the water, you know how to swim, you're running around. It creates a fight or flight response, right? That should kick in because you're fighting for your life. And when that happens, what happens? You pee all over yourself. You've heard that phrase, right? You're going to pee. It turns on all the autopilot nervous systems of the body. But if that's not what happened, but instead Natalie was unconscious when she fell into the water, then her body wouldn't have known that she was in trouble. There would be no fight or flight response, and therefore it wouldn't have peed. The bladder would be full. The autopsy is more consistent with the latter. Now, this is pure speculation, but it's interesting to note that her bladder was full and consistent. So what was your reaction to Robert Wagner being named a person of interest last year?
I was so relieved that that happened as well, because there's so much evidence in this case. There's medical evidence, there's scientific evidence, there's corroborating witnesses, and there's Dennis's eye and ear witness account. And so many cases out there get convictions with much less evidence that's in this case.
Nancy, as a prosecutor, what does this mean to you for Robert Wagner to be named a person of interest?
Well, it's not a suspect. Once you're named a suspect, a whole host of constitutional protections surround you. But as a person of interest, he should be worried. But when you don't know a horse, Oz, look at the track record. It's been all these years, they've done nothing, and they're not going to do anything. And I'm talking about LA law enforcement. I'm calling them out. They won't touch him. He was just out at a fancy restaurant the other night with his wife. He's not afraid of the cameras. Why? He's got nothing to worry about it because they're not going to do anything. And Oz, for 9 years, I worked at the Battered Women's Center as a volunteer at night when I was a prosecutor. She left the yacht the night before, right?
Yes.
She was so upset with the way he was acting. It was so tense. She rose. She got a ride. She didn't take the dinghy herself. She stayed in a hotel on land because she did not want to be with Wagner. So she comes back and she dies the next night? Is that a coincidence?
And that night that she left the yacht on Friday night, Natalie went on the island with Dennis. She told Dennis she was fed up with the way he was acting and that she wanted to take a seaplane in the morning. And that never happened. They ended up going back to the yacht and right to the secluded part of the island where Natalie lost her life.
So we reached out to Robert Wagner's attorney. We did not hear back in time for this taping. In 2013, 2 years after the case was reopened, she said in part, Mr. Wagner has fully cooperated over the last 30 years in the investigation of the accidental drowning of his wife in 1981. Mr. Wagner has been interviewed on multiple occasions by the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department and answered every single question asked of him by detectives during those interviews. It's also important for us all to remember that Robert Wagner has only recently been named a person of interest, and he has never been charged in Natalie Wood's death. Up next, an update from Natalie's sister. Lana's here. She's opening up about the sister she lost and her ongoing fight for justice. Stay with us. We are back with Crime Online's Nancy Grace and investigative author Marti Rulli, asking what really happened to Hollywood starlet Natalie Wood the night she drowned. And joining us via Zoom is Natalie's sister, her younger sister, Lana, is opening up about the sister she lost and her fight for answers. So Lana, after all these years, what do you miss the most about your sister and the life that she could have lived?
Oh, that's difficult to say the most, because it was such an encompassing relationship that we had. Natalie was my best friend. She was my surrogate mom. She was everything to me. It just saddens me as to what the relationship could have been today and how it would have affected her children and my child.
Lana, you think a lot about your sister, and there are lots of theories about how Natalie died. What do you think really happened to your sister that night?
Natalie was not having a terrific time with RJ. They were going through a problematic time. Natalie was working on a film that she hoped would help her. She had some issues with it. Natalie was angry and preparing herself for bed. I believe that Natalie and RJ had a very bad fight. I believe that he is responsible for her ending up in the water. I have always said that I didn't think it was premeditated, that I thought it was anger out of control at the moment. And that's the only thing that I have left to hang on to, because it is the most horrendous thought in the world, that someone would take the life of someone else who means so much. Natalie was pushed overboard. Natalie would not get in the dinghy. Natalie would not leave. And I have taken great affront to a couple of things that RJ has said, saying she was probably, this is a direct quote from him in his book, she was probably going off to a party because she was a woman like that. What? A woman who went to parties in her nightgown? Yeah. The entire matter of how she got in the water is just ridiculous. She would not have gone anywhere near.
So you have worked closely with detectives on your sister's case. What new information are they gathering right now? What insights can you share with us?
The only new thing is they do have new witnesses. These witnesses did not want to come forward then and do not want to come forward now and didn't. But these are important people that know that Natalie and RJ were the only two people on the back of the boat fighting.
But they're willing. But these witnesses are willing to speak the truth now?
They're unwilling, but they have. They have spoken to the detectives.
Lana, thank you very much. I know how painful this is to relive it. Good luck with the case. Nancy, what would justice mean for Natalie Wood?
I think justice would be the truth. Like Lana was just saying, she does not believe this was a planned attack, that he took the boat there, the yacht there, in order to kill her, that it was an anger attack. But whatever, Natalie is dead. And I think her case should be treated with the same respect and dignity and effort that other cases are. And it seems like her case has been put in a file and shoved away. I mean, why is he different? Because he's a star.
Especially when I see the bruises.
Awful. Mm-hmm.
Makes it much more to talk about on this, and this story is not going anywhere. We'll be right back. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out on new videos to live the good life.